the Internet Iceberg. Things you should never Google. There is a fine line between curiosity and obsession, between searching for information and searching for things you wish you had never found. The Internet is full of hidden depths, deleted videos, forgotten forums, and cut footage that never makes it to the homepage. They aren't loud or flashy, but they leave a mark. This iceberg is a map of those depths, from the strange and obvious to the distorted and erased. These are real stories, existing footage, experiments, and anomalies. Some are proven facts, others remain rumors. But they all share one thing. You probably shouldn't Google them, because searching doesn't always lead to knowledge. Sometimes it opens a door that should have stayed closed. Level 1. The Sky Happy Puppet Syndrome, Happy Puppet Syndrome. It was the old, outdated name for a rare genetic disorder officially known as Angelman syndrome. Children with this condition suffer from severe developmental delays, seizures, and speech issues. But what gave the syndrome its original name was their frequent, uncontrollable laughter and jerky movements, which reminded doctors of puppets on strings. This wasn't a metaphor. Medical journals from the mid-20th century described these children as dolls that are always smiling. Parents initially thought their baby was just happy, smiling even when falling or in pain. But eventually, the realization hit. It wasn't joy. It was a total lack of control over their body and emotions. The term happy puppet was later deemed unethical and offensive, but it still lurks in old medical literature, terrifying in its description. Birds aren't real. In 2019, a massive billboard appeared in Memphis, Tennessee, with a strange message: "Birds aren't real." Behind this phrase was an entire movement convinced of one thing: the U.S. government had exterminated all real birds between 1959 and 2001, replacing them with surveillance drones. Supporters claimed birds sit on power lines to recharge, and bird droppings on cars are actually GPS tracking devices. The movement's leader, Peter McIndoe, started this crusade in 2017. By 2019, it had exploded on TikTok and YouTube. People marched in the streets, picketed Twitter's headquarters, and screamed that the birds were a lie. McIndoe stayed in character for 7 years, giving serious TV interviews. Finally, he admitted the truth. It was all satire. A massive social experiment designed to show how easily absurdity can be sold as truth if you keep a straight face. Cursed YouTube channels. There are corners of YouTube that algorithms try to hide, videos that appear out of nowhere and seem to exist in a void. Take I Feel Fantastic, a video featuring a mannequin-like android in a wig, standing in an empty room, singing "I Feel Fantastic" in a monotone voice. The shot suddenly cuts to a zoom-in on a patch of grass. Rumors swirled that the creator was a killer, and the android was wearing the victim's clothes, singing to her burial spot. Then there's dining room or there is nothing. A woman says, "There is nothing," and falls face first into a bowl of soup. Or the distorted Tom and Jerry edits, where the violence becomes visceral and real. These videos feel like glitches in the Matrix, content that shouldn't exist. Dancing frog legs. It looks like a scene from a horror movie. Freshly severed frog legs, completely separated from the body, start dancing and twitching on the table. But there is no mysticism here, only biology. If you sprinkle salt on fresh mussels, the sodium triggers chemical reactions that mimic nerve impulses. The residual energy in the muscles causes them to contract violently. It looks like the dead are coming back to life. It's science, but knowing that doesn't make it any less disturbing to watch. How to Seduce a Turkey. In the 1950s, scientists noticed male turkeys were losing interest in mating. Researchers Dr. Shine and Dr. Hale decided to find out what exactly turned a turkey on. They built a lifelike female model. Once the males showed interest, the scientists started removing body parts. First the wings, then the legs, then the body. The males didn't care. Eventually, all that was left was a head on a stick. The males were still eager to mate with it. The conclusion was bleak. Male turkeys don't need a partner. They just need a visual trigger. It's a classic experiment in biology, but in practice, it looks like a twisted parody of nature. Eye tattoos. Of all body modifications, this one is the most dangerous. Scleral tattooing. It's not really a tattoo. It's an injection of ink directly into the white of the eye. The ink spreads, permanently coloring the eye blue, green, or purple. Despite being banned in several places, people still do it. In 2017, a model named Kat Gallinger tried it. The artist used the wrong ink and too much of it. Her eye began to leak purple fluid, her vision blurred, and she was left partially blind. Yet, hundreds still take the risk for the aesthetic. Tongue-eating louse nature has created horrors that fiction can't match. Meet the tongue-eating louse. This parasite enters a fish through the gills, attaches itself to the tongue, and cuts off the blood supply. The tongue withers and falls off. Then, the parasite attaches itself to the stub and becomes the new tongue. It functions like a tongue, moves like a tongue, and the fish uses it to eat. They live together, a parasite replacing a body organ. And yes, people sometimes find these inside fish bought at the supermarket. Brian Peppers. In 2005, a photo circulated the internet. A man with a distorted face and bulging eyes. People turned him into a meme, calling him a mutant. But Brian Peppers was real. He suffered from Cruzon syndrome. He lived in a nursing home in Ohio. But the sympathy ends there. Brian was a registered sex offender. The internet turned him into a digital boogeyman, using his face for shock value. He died in 2012, but his image remains a ghost of the early web. Wikipedia's disappeared. If you go to Wikipedia and search for list of people who disappeared, you will find endless pages sorted by decades. It's terrifying, not because of what's there, but what isn't. No bodies, no explanations, just a date and a final detail. Went out for bread, left the TV on, texted a friend, "I think I'm being followed." Called a hotline saying, "They are keeping me in the wall." Some entries haven't been updated in decades. Wikipedia acts as a digital graveyard for those who vanished into thin air. Fast food horrors. Fast food isn't just unhealthy. Sometimes it comes with a surprise. A Canadian man found a dead mouse at the bottom of his McDonald's coffee. Cadbury once had a scandal with worms in their chocolate. But the worst might be John Agnesini in New York, who bit into a Subway sandwich and found a 6-inch knife baked into the bread. Or the tourist who ordered a filet mignon, took a bite, and found a used tampon inside the steak. It's a reminder that you never really know what you're eating. Graham. In 2016, Australia wanted to promote road safety. Instead of a poster, they hired an artist and a trauma surgeon to design a human capable of surviving a high-speed car crash. They created Graham. He has no neck, a massive reinforced skull, sacs of air on his ribs, and a flat face. He looks like a monster, but he is actually what we would need to look like to survive our own technology. Graham became a viral sensation, a symbol of how fragile our real bodies actually are. The Nutty Putty Cave Tragedy. Nutty Putty Cave in Utah was a popular spot for explorers. In 2009, 26-year-old John Edward Jones went in with his brother. John tried to squeeze through a tight passage called the Birth Canal. He went in head first and got stuck, upside down. He couldn't move. Rescuers worked for 27 hours. They rigged a pulley system, but the rock was too soft and the anchors failed. John slid back down, deeper. His heart eventually gave out. They couldn't retrieve his body. The cave was sealed with concrete, becoming his permanent tomb. Electrocuting an elephant. In 1903, at Coney Island, an elephant named Topsy was publicly executed. She had killed 3 handlers, one of whom tried to feed her a lit cigarette. The owners decided to turn her death into a show. To be humane, they used electricity. They fed her carrots laced with cyanide, strapped copper sandals to her feet, and sent 6,600 volts through her body. Edison's film crew recorded it. Topsy died in seconds, surrounded by a cheering crowd. It remains one of the cruelest spectacles in American history. Soviet dog experiments. In the 1940s and 50s, Soviet scientists pushed the boundaries of ethics. Dr. Sergei Brukhonenko created a machine that kept a severed dog's head alive. The head would react to sound, blink, and even lick its nose, without a body. Later, Vladimir Demikov surgically grafted the head and front legs of a puppy onto the neck of an adult dog. The 2-headed dog lived, walked, and both heads ate. It was a grotesque leap forward for transplant science, proving that organs could be connected to a new host. Level 2. The tip of the iceberg rat king. A rat king is a real phenomenon where a group of rats get their tails knotted together by blood, dirt, and ice. Unable to separate, they live as a writhing, screaming ball of agony. They grow together, move together, and sometimes eat each other. The largest specimen was found in Germany in 1828. 32 rats fused together. It was once considered a bad omen, a harbinger of the plague. Lobotomy. It was once a Nobel Prize-winning procedure. The lobotomy. Doctors believed they could cure mental illness by severing connections in the brain's frontal lobe. Dr. Walter Freeman popularized the ice pick lobotomy. He would hammer a metal spike through the patient's eye socket and wiggle it to scramble the brain tissue. It took 10 minutes. It left patients docile, childlike, or vegetative. Rosemary Kennedy, the sister of JFK, was a victim. She went in a vibrant young woman and came out unable to speak or care for herself. The cameraman's revenge. In 1912, a Russian filmmaker created a stop-motion movie using real dead insects. The cameraman's revenge. He wired the legs of dead beetles and grasshoppers to make them act out a story of infidelity and revenge. It's a surreal, jerky nightmare that looks like a Victorian fever dream. The chainsaw's origin. The chainsaw wasn't invented for cutting wood. It was invented for childbirth. In the 18th century, if a baby was stuck in the birth canal, doctors performed a symphysiotomy, cutting through the pelvic bone. 2 Scottish doctors invented a hand-cranked chainsaw to saw through the bone and cartilage more quickly. It was used on conscious women without anesthesia. It wasn't until much later that someone realized it cut trees better than it cut bone. Noma disease. There's a disease called Noma that targets the poorest regions of the world. It starts as a small ulcer in the mouth. Within weeks, the infection devours the face. The lips, cheeks, and nose rot away, leaving exposed teeth and bone. 90% of victims die. Those who survive are left with horrific disfigurements, often outcast by their villages as cursed. It is entirely preventable with basic hygiene and antibiotics, yet it continues to consume faces today. The Real Emily Rose. The movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, was based on Anneliese Michel, a German girl diagnosed with epilepsy and psychosis. Her family believed she was possessed. In 1975, they stopped medical treatment and turned to exorcism. Over 10 months, 2 priests performed 67 exorcism sessions. Audio recordings exist of Anneliese screaming in a demonic, guttural voice. She was forced to kneel for hours until her tendons ruptured. She died of starvation and dehydration, weighing only 68 pounds. The priests and parents were charged with negligent homicide. Level 3. Immersion, Byford Dolphin. Incident: deep sea divers live in pressurized chambers to avoid the bends. In 1983, on the Byford Dolphin rig, a routine procedure went wrong. The chamber was explosively decompressed. The pressure dropped from 9 atmospheres to 1 in a fraction of a second. 4 divers were inside. The gas in their bodies expanded instantly. They essentially exploded from the inside out. One diver was forced through a 24-inch opening, fragmenting his body completely. It happened so fast they likely felt no pain, but the aftermath was a scene from hell. The Poughkeepsie Tapes. In the early 2000s, rumors spread about a serial killer who filmed his crimes. This became the basis for the movie The Poughkeepsie Tapes. It's a mockumentary, but it's shot so realistically that many believed it was real snuff footage. The killer, Edward Carver, walks on all fours, wearing a mask, tormenting his victims. While the movie is fiction, it draws heavily from real killers like Ted Bundy and Gary Ridgway, blending reality and fiction into something traumatizing. Komarov's Funeral. Vladimir Komarov was a Soviet cosmonaut knowing he was likely on a suicide mission. The Soyuz 1 spacecraft was riddled with defects. When he re-entered the atmosphere, the parachutes failed. He slammed into the Earth at full speed. Legend says he cursed his superiors over the radio as he fell. At his funeral, per his request, it was an open casket. All that remained was a charred, black lump of matter. He wanted the officials to look at what they had done. Google Maps horrors. Google Maps captures everything, sometimes even crimes. There is a story of a Google Street View car in a Spanish village capturing a man loading a suspicious, body-sized bag into a trunk. Later, it was linked to a disappearance. While many Google Maps mysteries are debunked, the idea that a satellite is constantly watching means that somewhere, right now, a crime is being recorded from space. Body farms. A body farm is a research facility where human corpses are left out in the open to rot. They are placed in trunks, submerged in water, or left in the sun. Forensic scientists study them to learn how to determine time of death. Students walk among bloating, blackened bodies. Sometimes, gases make the dead bodies twitch or moan. It's vital for science. But walking through a field of decomposing humans is a uniquely grim experience. Feral children, Mowgli stories sound romantic, but the reality is tragic. Children raised by animals or in total isolation suffer permanent damage. In India, a girl was found living with monkeys, screeching and walking on all fours. In Russia, a boy raised by dogs barked and ate raw meat. These children rarely recover. They miss the critical window for learning language and human behavior, remaining forever stuck between man and beast. Level 4. The Abyss, Delphine, LaLaurie. In 1834, a fire broke out in a mansion in New Orleans. Rescuers found a slave chained to the stove who admitted she started the fire to commit suicide rather than face her mistress, Delphine LaLaurie. When the authorities broke into the attic, they found a torture chamber. Slaves were suspended, limbs broken and reset in strange angles, mouths sewn shut. One man was packed into a tiny cage with his bones broken to fit. LaLaurie wasn't just a cruel owner. She was a sadist performing medical experiments. She escaped to Paris before justice could catch her, but her house remains one of the most haunted locations in America, the Ant Hill. Kids Roche Thériault was a Canadian cult leader who convinced his followers the world was ending. He formed the Ant Hill Kids. He performed surgeries on his followers with no anesthesia, using hammers and knives. He forced them to break their own legs. He made them eat dead bodies. When one woman tried to leave, he amputated her arm with a rusty saw. It is one of the most brutal cult stories in existence, proving that the devil is often just a man with charisma. Elisa Lam. In 2013, a student named Elisa Lam vanished from the Cecil Hotel in LA. Police released footage from the elevator. Elisa is seen acting bizarrely, hiding in the corner, pressing all the buttons, and talking to invisible people. The elevator door refuses to close. She eventually walks away. Weeks later, guests complained about the water tasting funny. Elisa was found decomposing in the water tank on the roof. The tank was hard to access, and the lid was heavy. To this day, people debate. Was it a mental break, a crime, or something paranormal? That is all for today. Some doors are better left unopened, and some search terms are better left untyped. Stay safe out there.